Item number 5, receipt of petitions or correspondence from the public. I'd like to make one statement. I've been informed that the application for Crooked Run has been withdrawn at this time, and Mr. Silek will speak to it on doing the public session. Ms. Berry.
May I interject one more thing?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
We will be making an edit to the agenda, removing it from the vote for tonight as well.
The first speaker is Linda Allen.
Do you want to let Joe Silek speak first?
Yes, let's bring Joe forward
Yeah, it would
then.
make
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Silek and members of council. I'm here tonight to inform the town council that my client, Crooked Run Rest LLC, has requested the county to take no further action in their rezoning application and a special use permit application, that they are going to not move forward with this project at this time. So there is no request for town water and sewer for this project. Maybe in the future, when they refile their application, there might be a request, but at this time, there is no request for town water and sewer. Thank you.
Okay.
First public speaker, Ms. Berry.
Ms. Allen.
That saves a lot of time. Okay. Linda Allen, 15 Massey Street, Front Royal, Virginia.
Thank you.
Mr. Silek can save a great deal of time, but I want to tell you, for your own edification, being a teacher, that the Planning Commission has a chapter in our ordinances, and it's called Subdivisions, Chapter 148. If you all had read it, you would have known you could only vote no on the application tonight. So you might want to look at that. Okay. I also want to point something out to you, that it's a small town, we all know each other fairly well. And so in addition to just talking about Crooked Run West, I wanted to suggest to you that local projects warrant council checking on collusion and the possibility of family and friend relationships among the project partners and the promoters. And the town faces, a different subject, serious expenses in both the water and wastewater services. An estimate based upon issues cited by council members and staff recently are at least $61 million. That does not include the cost of Crooked Run West. It does include some critically significant issues council must resolve. Prioritizing the project seems necessary, in my opinion, and not taking on new projects to be necessary. Paying the interim mayor's salary to his LLC. The contract then should become, because he's a contractor, one where the services are specified along with the conditions that would affect performance in a timely manner. Given that the services can be specified, one provision should read that the interim town manager does not have the power to hire or fire employees. The person was briefly the interim mayor, who, while paid so little, wanted to get back to his own businesses, and yet with the power and the salary of the town manager situation, decided to stay. He cannot know the personnel sufficiently in his brief tenure to write evaluation reports on any employee. Please do specify the services and limit the services for which the interim town manager can perform. And last but not least, I do take some exception to Mr. Mez's comments last week. Mr. Meza spoke previously to the criticism he perceived as unfair to the council, which included the remark that they are nearly referred to as crooks. I don't recall anyone even intimating that the council has crooks or acts like crooks. Some other word in some other category could be appropriate, but not the word crooks. Thanks.
Janice Hart.
Good evening. My name is Janice Hart. I reside at 1120 Ashley Street. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
In last Tuesday's election, the town and the county people turned out to vote for change, and we got it. It appears that the community is fed up with the good old boy system, and they want new people, transparency, and accountability. I think the voters made that message very clear. I worked a poll that day and was amazed at the comments that voters made for transparency and accountability. Many said they would be watching their leaders closer than ever before. This evening, again, I am addressing you as a governing body, not picking on any one individual. My concern is the terms of the employment contract for an interim town manager. This contract, which I have read many times, states that it is hiring an individual and that the town is paying an LLC. It disappoints me that we are not hiring an employee for the town manager, but an LLC. Or are we? The terms of the working with the LLC can be very different from that of an employee. While this is for an interim period, I accept that a private contractor might be good for business for the town. Or is it? While I have been told this paragraph of the contract was dropped, it still appears in what was FOIA'd as the final signed contract. What I see is history repeating itself. Over 3 years ago, there was a single council member who tried to point out improprieties. That council member was looking for transparency and took a verbal beating, if you will, from the rest of the council, and they refused to listen to that council member that the town had been overpaying the EDA. And look what happened. Now we have a new mayor who is questioning this contract and how it was made without any of his input to pay an interim town manager. An interim town manager could be requested through the VML and been in place upon Mr. Walt's departure. It's been done before. A VML approved and experienced interim town manager that would keep the ship afloat with an excellent staff in place, and it could have been business as usual until an approved replacement could have been located. It also concerns me that this contract is being made with an unnamed LLC to be paid. Why all the secrecy? Why isn't it named in the contract? Again, I'm not attacking a person. I am concerned about history repeating itself. The view from the cheap seats has many taxpayers asking a lot of questions. So my question is, has the town hired an individual or an LLC? And if the contract has changed and the town manager will be paid directly as an individual and no LLC will be involved, then why is paragraph point 2 still in the signed contract? A letter to the editor that appeared in today's Royal Examiner might have an answer to this question, or cause more questions to be asked. I fear that we are going down the same path as the county. I just don't want to see history repeat itself. I thank you all for your time and your patience.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor, if I could.
Go ahead.
Could we have Doug basically explain this contract, if there's anything illegal about the contract, if it's slightly illegal, anything wrong with it? Explain it to the citizens.
We're out of order doing it this way. If you want to ask a question, wait till your turn.
I'm sorry, you're not running the meeting.
I know,
I'm sorry.
it's out of order.
Okay. Let's back up then. Is that the correct manner then, doing Mr.
The mayor is the parliamentarian, but If it's the wish of the council to wait for Councilman Holloway's concerns and questions, I can do it. But if it's the wish of council for me to address it now, I can do it now. Whichever is the will of town council.
What do you say?
I'm fine with now.
Now? Gary? Now then, please.
I researched this issue very carefully under the town charter, under the town code, under the state code, including the Virginia Public Procurement Act. We even ran it by VML. There is no requirement that as to whether or not it has to be a town employee, a contractor, or what it is. I did very carefully put a provision in there that, however, the town manager wishes or doesn't wish to convey his ultimate interest into an LLC, it does not absolve the town manager's responsibility to the town, does not absolve his responsibilities to town council, does not absolve any of his responsibilities and obligations under any laws or regulations that may apply to this position. So he is obligated just as if, whether he's an employee or not. An analogy is just as if I receive my paycheck and I assign it, which I do, to my wife. And she deposited it in our joint bank account. Once an employee or a contractor receives a check from the town, what they do with it is that person's business. However, that person, when they enter into a contract with the town, they have very specific legal responsibilities and obligations to the town, and nothing that person does or does not do can relieve that person of those rights and responsibilities. I take anyone's legal duties to the town very, very carefully. The last thing I intend to do is open the town up to liability, because two things happen, several things happen. First of all, I get fired. Secondly, I get my law license turned into the state bar and I lose it. And third, I'm out of a job and I'm out of a career. And so I make very, very certain whatever we do, it is done legally. And that's the best I know how to address that question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Napier. Ms. Berry?
Fern Vasquez.
Fern Vasquez, 120 Gloucester Road here in Front Royal. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking some time to listen to us talk. So I want to take a deep breath here and say a few words about public service. Mr. Mayor-elect, the rest of the council, and even those who are in an unelected position. You stood up, you put your hat in the ring, you did the hard, those of you who are elected, you did the hard work of campaigning, you got elected. Now you're in office and you have to develop this very hard shell around you, that's the shock absorber, which allows you to accept all the criticism from all sides from us in the public. And there's honor in that, and there's respect in that. And I know that most of you have full-time jobs, and then you still devote more energy to the running of the town. And I want you to know that we do appreciate that. Now, the people of town, such as myself, I feel that we play an important role as well. And those of us who speak up publicly and demand accountability are really trying to serve the best interest of the public trust that we have in you. And there's also honor and respect in that. So why is it that so many of us have made repeat appearances before you over the past year, over the past months and years? And I don't think the theme has been that subtle. We want transparency over processes that will affect us directly. We are wary of any possibilities of backroom deals that do not promote the interests of the town. And we demand due diligence in the hiring of the town administrative individuals who help to keep the trains running on time and who keep that sense of comfort in the community that everything is, that all the infrastructure is taken care of and that we're not going to have a situation like they have in Flint, Michigan. So I feel that the people who are hired for those town positions are equally as important as a role that you play. So I just want to summarize some of the points that were brought forward here already tonight as I was listening. So on the matter of the town providing water to Crooked Run West development, voila, that seems to have been solved, at least for the time being. And I'd like to think that our voices in this did matter. I want to bring up the second issue that was just given some attention and discussion by Mr. Napier. And I think in looking at this, some of it you could say is just nitpicking, okay? Whether it's a contract, whether it's employment and how it's done. But I think it says something that there's something underneath that says that there's some mistrust in a process that occurred. And I think that that's what we have to look at. For Mr. Tierick, I do not doubt that you've had a distinguished career, and I'm in no way demeaning you or suggesting that you don't have the qualities needed. I think the question is, we simply don't know. I mean, I think there was poor disclosure of this. We want to know that we want to see a fact sheet, some resume information that says, this is my skill set, and it matches with the requirements of the job. I think that that's what we want to see. And so I would suggest in this that at least there be some supervision. I mean, the horse is already out of the barn, so we're not going back, okay? So for several months, Mr. Tierick will be the town administrator. But I think that we in the public are watchful that there's no major shakeup in the administration. I think it's honest that we have questions. Given our past history over the past several months, you do have a public that is a bit suspicious and skeptical. And I think we have a right to be so. So if we ask these questions, it's asked in the best interest of the town. So in conclusion, I urge you to listen to those voices in the town. Over the past months and few years, our town and the county has been through some rough sailing. I think we can all agree on that. There should be collective lessons learned and a serious effort to work together. Thank you so much for your time.
Ms. Berry?
Paul Gabbard.
Paul Gabbard, 1221 Valley Drive. I think, I'm not going to get on anyone, but I think putting Mr. Tedrick in as mayor and as town manager was a big mistake, doing it behind closed doors. It left everybody out. Everybody feels in this town like we're left out of everything. And doing that was a wrong thing. His LLC in the contract was a wrong thing. Just the letters LLC anymore in this county and town brings fear and brings anger, and you all should have known that. You should have known that, putting it in his contract. Just the letters, LLC. So that just, that'll take me to what I was originally going to say. And kind of the same stuff, but this recent election showed how much the people want change in the county government and the town of Front Royal. They're tired of not being listened to. They are tired of closed meetings. They are tired of individuals put in temporary positions without having a say in it. They are tired of having the future locked in by a council that doesn't listen, or a council of 7 people. The public, the people want to say in what happens, and they don't have that. And a perfect example is the hospital with no maternity ward. This group right here canceled the whole maternity ward in this town and county forever. No matter what all these people back in here on that night said, you all canceled it. Want to say something?
I wasn't here. I'm here with Chris.
Okay, all right. There, I'll take you two out.
Thank you.
But I think you would have approved it anyway. While I was getting signatures for the petition on removal of the supervisors, everyone asked the same question. I mean, everyone. Can we get rid of Doug Stanley and can we get rid of the town council? That was everybody. That's everybody's feeling. Even the people who live in the county are affected by your voting on issues, and I heard it with every signature. I believe that this council is blind to the actual mood of the people. All I hear when I go to a meeting like this, or I go to one of the other meetings, all I hear from the council is, we have done nothing wrong. But if you look and listen, you just might see and hear the frustration and anger of the people. I believe that any voting on issues like the hospital, the water to Crooked Run West, and other larger issues should be done by the vote of the people, not by a council of 7 or a board of supervisors of 5. These few should not hold the future of the town of Front Royal or the county of Warren on just their opinions and votes unless they are to vote the will of the majority of the people. In the work sessions and the public meetings, these are the 2 biggest comments I ever hear. This is what I think, and this is coming from you all, this is what I think, or this is what I think we should do. I have never heard, what to do, what do the people of the town of Front Royal want? What do the people say about this issue or that issue? And to the end, I'm only trying to help each of you see exactly the feelings of this town and county. The lack of trust in this council is the same as the lack of the trust in the Board of Supervisors. And if you're willing, just listen, look and listen. Open your eyes and listen to the people. If the people come out here in droves for one issue, that shows that the majority of the people don't want it. Just the amount of people in this room is a bigger majority than you all. So you all shouldn't vote against the people in this room. And the last meeting,
Wrap it up, please.
I certainly will. In the last meeting, Mr. Meza said he couldn't figure out why everybody was against the council and da-da-da. He said if anybody wanted to take a seat, they were welcome to do so. Mr. Meza, if you want to come down here and join the crowd, I'll come up and sit in your seat right now. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. I don't know if you all have looked at the engineering studies for the water line supplying the corridor, but I think everybody should look at this and see what in 15 years, the amount of water we're going to need in this town. We don't need residential right now, and I know some people on this board are for residential. We need jobs. We need commercial. Commercial should get to water before any residential. We're going to be hurting in 15 years for water and all the jurisdictions above us. The Shenandoah River is not going to supply water forever to us.
Thank you, sir. Jared.
Bruce Rappaport.
Good evening. Bruce Rappaport, 300 West Main Street. Well, Mr. Silek has blown up my evening today with his latest play. I was against the bringing the water out to Crooked West. But I will say this, I originally had heard Doug Stanley talk about bringing workforce housing out there for the school teachers. And it dawned on me driving in today that wouldn't it be a novel idea if Mr. Silek's clients could figure out a way to bring it into the corporate limits of Front Royal, and a novel idea that apartments, building structures, whatnot, could also feed commercial, because those school teachers who need affordable housing will need places to go. And I think that's something that, you might want to go back to your client about, Joe. Also, the other thought that I had is, I think it's time that council go back to the county and ask them to review the 2015 meals and lodging amendment that was signed in lieu of pilot fees and whatnot, because I think it's inequitable. The county, I think it was in 2016, 2017, I think the number was somewhere around $750,000, of which maybe 700 was for meals and 50,000 was for lodging, and the town only gets 5% of the lodging, and I believe somewhere along the line the town only gets 2% of the 5%. And when you run the numbers, the county gets 70%, the town gets 30%. That means the town's getting around $250, county's getting around $525. Now, the town citizens back in the day when there was no DuPont anteed up and spent $50 million to run an infrastructure out there, and I wish that Walter Duncan was living today because he could reinforce that statement. And I remember reviewing what I call his manifesto, and those were the kind of numbers. The whole idea is not, the town of Front Royal has a lot of issues that they need to fix. The roads need to be fixed. There's a lot of issues, and you need money to do that, and you need revenue. And if it takes to walk away from the 2015 amendment and annex, then you got to do it, okay? That's the only way towns grow. And it's going to take 25 or 30 years for anything to happen out in the Happy Creek area. So the future is now, and you need to think about going back to the county and working out a better deal. That deal stunk, and it should have never been signed. And that's pretty much all I have to say today. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Ms. Barrett.
Mr. Means.
Boy, Matt, you wish you weren't here tonight. It's amazing. I mean, I just have gone through so much, putting these little dots together and then saying, no, that can't be. People act like some people who were on the EDA and they kind of bully stuff through. It's hard to believe that it could come as close. And what a risk to try and bully a position after you've just heard bullying for the previous 2 or 3 years. You know, it's amazing. It's a big risk. Amazing that somebody would do that as soon as, in fact, it hasn't ended. Things are still happening. And connections. I really hope that you were not on that grand jury that Hollis Stark got indicted on, because that paints a very deep and dark picture. It's not nice. I'm really upset with you guys. We really deserve better.
Is that really a separate issue?
Yeah, well, no, that's probably all I gotta say.
Thank you.
And thank you for taking the position of vice mayor when you wouldn't take it before. You sat there and got back into that position of vice mayor, and you should have been the one to take the reins, the responsibility, and sit in that chair instead of having to bring somebody else from the outside in.
Thank you.
That's our last speaker.
That's all? Thank you, Mr. Ray. We move on to the, what am I missing? Mr. Kuzer?
I didn't sign up, based on what I've heard, I'd like to speak on.
Ms. Berry, would you add Mr. Kuzer to our list, please?
Mr. Kushner, sure, come forward.
I'm just a little confused and hope y'all can straighten me out here. You had on the agenda the Crooked Run West water approval, and my hearing may not be as good as I thought it was, but I don't think I heard an agenda modification and a vote to change the existing agenda. So if that happened, I just didn't hear it. And I find it strange that supposedly the application for Crooked Run West was pulled a couple days into this month, but here we are on the 12th, and there's been no comments to anybody in the public who the planning department has been in contact with continually on this matter, that there's been a change on that project. So even though he said it, the council got a request to deal with it. They didn't get a follow-up from the county that it had been pulled 10 days ago. And the public who's been interested in it hadn't been notified as well. So I'm confused as to what the hell's going on. On the second matter, regarding the interim town manager's contract, that it's gone from an individual to an LLC. So we didn't hire an individual on an interim basis. We hired a company on an interim basis. And even though it's a one-person company, it's still a company. It's a contract service rather than an individual service. And I'm wondering what the town's purchasing guidelines are, because it ends up being a sole source contract where there's no competition from anybody else, any other contractors. So I'm just confused on those two things that be happy to be set straight on. Thank you.
Thank you. To answer your one question, the item 6D will come up here very shortly, okay? Receipt and petitions and correspondence in public is over. Let's go to reports. Town officials such as the interim town manager. Would you care to speak?
Thank you, Councilman Silek. We have several items that have been brought to my attention. The water line upgrade. The town of Front Royal will continue installing new water lines on Steele Avenue, Highview Street, and Scott Street from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Completion date is expected for January 31, 2020, weather permitting. Sections of the road will be closed during this time of work progress. Residents will be able to get in and out. There will be periods of no water throughout the project. Motorists are asked to use caution when driving in this area and be aware of crews working. As it relates to lane closure at Duck Street and Forest Hill Drive, the Town of Front Royal Water and Sewer Department will be extending the sewer line at West Duck Street beginning Thursday, November 7th, 2019 through November 22nd, 2019 between the hours of 8 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. weather permitting. There will be a lane closure in the intersection of West Duck Street and Forest Hill Drive. Signs will be in place and flaggers directing traffic. Sewer line work, there'll be sewer line work by Tri-State Utilities to do some sewer line work. They'll be flushing and camera sewer lines throughout the areas of the town from October 30th to November 29th. We asked residents to put their toilet seats down in an effort to prevent any issues. New pedestrian crossing signs. I know members of council are very interested in this. As part of the ongoing pedestrian safety initiative STOPS, which stands for Smart Towns Observe Pedestrian Safety, the Town of Front Royal Energy Services Department has completed installation of flashing pedestrian crossing signs at South Street and Action Street. When flashing, drivers should be sure to stop for the pedestrians. Towns will also be working to install flashing pedestrian crossing signs at South Street and Hill Street crosswalk. And two other comments, Mr. Councilman. The four-way stop sign is going to be installed beginning October 28th, has been installed on October 28th at 18th and Belmont. And a four-way stop sign is also being installed on November 19th at Kerfoot and Salem Avenue. There'll be flags which will indicate that the signs are there for motorists. That's all I have.
Thank you. Requests and inquiries by council. Does anyone like to speak?
Yes. No, you go. No, you go ahead, go. Read all 12 pages.
Mr. Mason.
Yes, Mr. Interim Mayor. I did have a statement tonight on Crooked Run, which I was thinking I was going to postpone, but now I'll move forward with it. But first I would like to address some of the petitions that were brought before council tonight. And I'll try to move relatively quickly through this and perhaps take a little bit of a water break as I'm moving through. But Ms. Vasquez, hope I pronounced your name correctly. Did she leave? She leave? Oh, she left. Okay. I just wanted to compliment her. She's an eloquent speaker. She does a great job in articulating her points. She's been coming to a few different council meetings, and I'm always impressed in how she lines up her line of thinking and the recommendations that she offers to council, specifically around transparency. I think she made some great points tonight, suggestions that we definitely could incorporate as a council. And I'm just appreciative of the fact that she comes out and continues speaking on behalf of the citizens of Front Royal and giving us the recommendations. She does a very nice job. Mr. Rappaport, I agree with you. We need conversations. We need to talk about the corridor agreement, future development, not necessarily today, but what's going to be happening over the next 5 years, 10 years. And I'll make some of those points in my Crooked Run statements. But I sincerely agree with the recommendations that you're bringing up. Mr. Means, I just wanted to comment quickly in defense of Councilman Vice Mayor Silek. Vice Mayor Silek actually volunteered to stay in the interim mayor position. He wanted to stay in that position, and we wanted him to stay in that position. But for a variety of reasons, mostly legal reasons, we were advised that that wasn't possible. It wasn't possible unless he was willing to give up his term as a councilman. Basically forfeit the next 2 years in order to fill 8 months in a role that he would then have to vacate at this election. And I agree with Mr. Silek that that would have been unfair to the people that elected him, who put him on town council if he had to vacate that role. So I completely understand the frustration. It is really hard to see the moving pieces. And again, as much as we can be transparent about it as possible, I appreciate the criticism and I'm willing to give the information around that. But I did want to go on the record with saying that Mr. Silek has been fantastic about even volunteering to give that up, but I, in the end, supported his decision that he had to vacate that role, which is the reason why we moved forward with an interim mayor. So I hope that makes sense. Mr. Gabbard, I'm glad to hear that you're going to be running for election. 15,000 people in this town vote to elect a council member in. Up to 15,000 people can vote.
I said, take your seat.
It took a year, fundraising, knocking on doors, showing interest in issues that were involving this town, And each one of these people who got elected up here put in a lot of hard work to get here and showed a passion. So I am really excited that you've taken an interest and that you're going to put in that same work to get up here and represent your constituents.
Just going on your comment.
Ms. Allen, I did want to address, in light of the op-ed piece or the letter to the editor, whether or not words matter. I agree, words do matter. Context matters as well, and where you place those words. So the reference of crook, just so we're all on the same page, a definition is a person who's dishonest or criminal. Do I think the implications was counsel was acting dishonestly? Absolutely. Would I change the word? No. Crook was the perfect word based on the descriptions that were being given to counsel. With regard to our contract for moving forward with Mr. Tiedrick as an interim town manager, this is something that happens all the time. When somebody vacates, in companies, when somebody vacates a key position, you have a couple options. You look to an internal employee to fill that position, which we did, or you can go to an outside agency. An outside agency is typically an independent contract firm that would fill a position for a period of time. It's also done when you want to bridge the gap before you bring on a full-time person so that you can continue moving forward the projects that you're working on and not lose traction. 6 to 1 vote, 5 to 1 vote, that this council determined we wanted the person with experience who was working on the issues and the projects that we were developing to continue moving forward what we were working on and not lose a step in the pace that we had set. That's why this council voted in a significant majority to put in Mr. Tiedrick and the interim mayor. I understand that there's concerns around how fast it went or how we could have been more transparent. And I'm not gonna contest the transparency. It's clear that there is a lack of trust and we need to be over transparent in every action we take. I will not defend that. But I do think it was a good decision for a couple reasons. Number one, total comp for our town manager. By moving forward with an independent contractor, we saved over 25% in gross benefits for this position. 25%, nearly $50,000 annually. No retirement benefits, no health insurance benefits. Allows objectivity when we're trying to make major changes in what we're doing within the institution of the town. We weren't looking for a lame duck in our town manager for the next 6 months. Matt was a logical choice. Matt was a logical choice for the position. And again, in the interest of full transparency, we are immediately moving, we talked about this last work session, we're immediately moving to an outside agency to help with the recruitment efforts and the selection process of a new town manager. This council isn't going to be the ones vetting it out. We're hiring a firm to do this for us because of the lack of trust and the interest of transparency. That's the steps we're going to be taking to recruit the next town manager. I just wanted to address those comments because I think it was really important. Again, valid concerns being brought up, but I wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page on how this council was acting. Sorry, I told you it was going to be a water break and you should have let me go first. Okay, on the Crooked Run project, I did write down my words because I wanted them to go in order, my thoughts to go in order on this. Very controversial topic, as you've heard tonight. I asked at the last work session that this actually be brought forward for a vote, number one, because I wanted to put it to rest. I didn't want to continue belaboring it, and it didn't seem that we were getting traction on council. But I had no problem discussing it and vetting out all options that were associated with the project. So I know it's removed from the agenda tonight, but the statement that I was going to read was going to go in conjunction with a vote, which I anticipated that it would probably be a 5 or 4 to 1 vote, voting it down tonight. So I asked this vote tonight so that each council member goes on the record with their stance regarding extending water and sewer utilities to the corridor, and they're willing to evaluate our MOU with the county. It should be no surprise at this point that I would be the only dissenting view. But my vote in the affirmative tonight would not necessarily be because I think Crooked Run mixed residential and commercial project is the perfect use of the currently commercial zone land, but rather because I would like to show support and my willingness to work with those who bring forth creative solutions to help our community grow. And I just want to emphasize that the town of Front Royal and Warren County are our community. There have been a lot of arguments made against this project, such as we don't have the water capacity for any more homes, our sewer system has too many problems and can't handle the additional volume, the intersection on 522 is not wide enough to support any increase in traffic. We do this for one, we'll have to do it for all the requests. Our schools are overfilled, can't handle any more children. More homes and apartments raise taxes, not spread cost. I could offer some counter arguments to each of these, but let me just point out that if we accept any one of these points as our reality, then by that logic, we'll not prove any developments of any projects going forward, whether in the town or county. This is what concerns me most, and this is the message I think we are broadcasting to people outside our community. Where are our solutions? Where are the recommendations for compromise or help in bringing vision to fruition? Speak with any developer, construction company, or business that has worked in the town and county in the last year and ask about their experience in working through the municipalities. I guarantee we make it especially difficult. In the case of Crooked Run project, we say that the county has to approve the zoning before the town will discuss extending water to the corridor. But the county says the town has to approve the water extension prior to any rezoning. And neither the town nor the county will discuss modifying the MOU to accommodate this project until the aforementioned has been resolved. All the while, there's an underlying implication that this developer is trying to pull something over on us and lying about water consumption in order to make a profit. It worries me that it's come to this. If someone has the audacity to try to maximize the profit on their investment, they must be criminals. We want revenue to improve our water, sewer, and infrastructure. We want money to improve our schools. We want affordable choices in our living selection. And we don't want to pay for any of this through increased taxes. I see investors and companies willing to offer both housing and commercial development as a way to solve some of these issues. Smart growth is important. But I think we are stuck in a chicken and egg scenario. Which comes first, commercial development for a town that is growing by only a handful of new homes a year, or a population density that supports the business plan of investors willing to take a chance on Front Royal? Either way, I think if we continue throwing up barriers, just demonstrating closed-mindedness to ever-changing market demands, and signaling to those outside our community that we know best on where to locate, what the market will support, and how to fund projects, will continue to stagnate. Our local economy and hurt our ability to let Front Royal thrive. I don't pretend to have all the answers or know best structure for the Crooked Run commercial development, but I did promise those who elected me in 2016 that I would be fair and open-minded to every project or proposal brought before the town. I know the approval of Crooked Run project will not be passed tonight. However, I did want my vote to signal my commitment in working with those willing to continue to grow Front Royal's economy and my willingness to overcome the statement bias of that is how it's always been done, or we can't do it because we made a policy stating so. Thank you for your time and letting me communicate in a way that meets the expectations of transparency. And additionally, I did want to thank council. This council worked through vetting this process, did an excellent job of asking questions, working with one another, and I think you can see that there are varying viewpoints up here, which I think makes a dynamic council, and I appreciate that. Mr. Vice Mayor, that was my statements for tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson.
Yes, excuse me, pardon me because I did not write out any statements and I had to borrow a pen to switch purses, but anyhow, I told y'all Jake had 12 pages. But as far as the Crooked Run West project, we did look into it in research and go on websites and read what was being submitted to us each time. I think one of the first times I heard about the development was with the coalition, and they were reading it and going through it. Mr. Kushner presented that day or something along those lines. And I did my own research, and I felt that it was fair. My decision was fair, and it would have been a no tonight, as everybody already knows. As far as Matt bullying his way into position, that didn't happen. Gary even said the other meeting, he was the one who brought Matt into this. I brought in Al Larson, and those are like the only two names we had out there.
We had 10.
We had 10? Okay, we might have had 10, but those are the two names I remember. But that's how it went. We processed it, but Gary brought that forward. There was no bullying. that I observed, I wouldn't sit here and deal with any of that. Also, basically a similar process happened with putting him in the interim manager position as well. There's nothing shady going on with that contract. I've asked questions. Doug has answered those questions. Let's see. And I know, and I do have a feeling for the pulse of the town. I stay on Facebook. I see people in the grocery store. I can almost not go to the grocery store without spending an hour talking to people about what's going on. And there is a lot of distress in the community, and rightfully so, with everything that we've had going on. So I don't mind the questions. I don't mind the criticisms or any of that. I don't mind any of that. What I'd like to do is to make sure that while we're shining a light on what we think is wrong, we also talk about what's going right up here. We are doing the improvements on South Street to make it safer because we've had people die there. We are making Kerfoot safer, which is where we have our children playing soccer. We are doing a lot of good stuff up here. And while we highlight the bad things, I think it's important that we highlight those good things. And I'm upset because I love this town. I did this for the town. There is no glamorous pay, there is no car thrown into this. It is because I want to be here, and I work hard, and I work hard to represent everybody out there. No matter what it is, that's what I'm doing. That's what I see my constituents doing, and we work well together. We have a lot of projects on the table, and that is why we needed an interim manager that could step right in, go underneath of Joe, see everything that he has going on, and being as Matt was interim mayor, he already knew what we were working on and could move things forward. And like he said, we're going to an outside agency to get people in here to officially become employees for town manager. But I just wanted to say that I would really like it if we could talk about all aspects, the good and the bad. But that's that. Sorry.
My turn.
Your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The first thing I'd like to say, I was out of town for the weekend and I didn't get to go to the Veterans Day, so I'd like to say tonight I would like to thank all the veterans, their families for their service in keeping America free. And the first thing I'd like to say, freedom comes at a very high price with family and friends, because freedom is not cheap. Freedom is something that we earn, and we've had a lot of lives lost because of that. The second thing I'd like to talk about is, first I'd like to thank the citizens for electing me mayor of Front Royal. The reason I'm not the mayor tonight, I called Carol Carol Tobin, and the paperwork has gone to Richmond, and it hasn't been approved by the electoral board yet. And so she told me that until I get a letter from her or a phone call that I cannot go and take my oath of office, and it may be another week, maybe be 2 weeks before I can do that. So that's why I'm not the mayor here this evening or running this meeting. I would like to thank Bill Silek, our vice mayor, for yesterday. He went to the Veterans Day and gave his speech, and I thanked him for that. I asked him to do that, thinking that I would have been the mayor, but I wasn't. And I'd also like to thank him for chairing this meeting tonight, and maybe another one, or maybe two others before I become the actual mayor of Front Royal. So if you bear with Mr. Silek and bear with me, one day we'll get back to where we're going, and I'll be the mayor, and hopefully that we can get things going in the right direction. I have a lot of things to say when I become the mayor, but I'll keep that to a later time. So with that, again, thank you for voting for me, and I hope that I can be one of the best mayors that you've had in past years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Silek. I would like to speak to transparency a moment. As vice mayor, when the 8-month event occurred, there was a lot of confusion exactly how it worked. Our town lawyer went through a lot of work to determine exactly what were the steps. There were a lot of counties not following the state regulations. I made sure that we had the process correct, and it was presented to the public. Also tonight, you're going to see that you'll get a view of the RFP that's going on the street so we can start looking at hiring a new town manager. I asked that to be given that way, so there was transparency. The second point is going to come up very quickly, is how do we replace Mr. T-Wall? So when we go into work session tonight, I'm going to ask that we have an addition to the agenda that says, what is the process exactly, so the public can understand what is the process. Then it is transparent. Exactly. I've already had a dozen phone calls this morning or today asking what is the process. So we're going to put it out exactly the way it should be, and that will be the process that we will follow. And that's what I've got to say about transparency. I had a discussion with Mr. Kuzer today, and that was one of the discussions we had, was transparency. So the town council is really trying to be transparent with what we do. There are some things you just can't discuss out in the public until the whole process is fully understood. That's what I'm trying to do as your vice mayor, to lay these processes out. I'm a process engineer. I look at those, and I've done it for most of my career in manufacturing and engineering. So I'm well aware of that. Does that take care of everybody? Covered? Let's move on to the agenda. Item 6D, is there any proposals, addition or deletions items to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I propose that we remove item number 10, council approval for the Crooked Run West LLC water and sewer request, and delete it from the agenda.
Second.
I got a motion and I've got a second on item 10 of the agenda, removal of the Crooked Run West request. Ms. Berry, roll call please.
Mr. Gillespie.
Yes.
Mr. Holloway.
Yes.
Mr. Mezza.
Yes.
Mr. Silek.
Yes.
Mr. T-Wall.
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes, thank you.
Is there any further discussion at this time? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 7, consent agenda. I need a motion for a council approval for purchase of police vehicles.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
I have a motion to approve the consent items as they are, and I have a second. I have a second here. Discussion?
Yes, I'd like to ask Jennifer to read the actual consent agenda items, if she would, please.
Do you want the summary, Mr. T-Wall, or just the?
Yes, please.
The first one is consent 7A. Council's requested to approve the rolling stock purchase of 3 2024 Interceptor police vehicles through Haley Ford, South Virginia State Contract in the amount of $125,787.48. The new vehicles will replace 3 2017 vehicles with over 100,000 miles with each that will be removed from the fleet and added to the surplus public auction. The second is a bid for utility services to replace sewer pipeline. This is item 7B. Council is requested to approve a bid to Portland Utilities Construction Company, LLC, in the amount of $887,537.24 for utility services to replace 2,835 linear feet of 8-inch sanitary sewer pipeline and 698 linear feet of 10-inch sanitary sewer and associated appurtenances.
Mr. Vice Mayor, the reason I asked that to be read, I don't know if y'all noticed or not, that we just spent, or we're going to spend over $1 million on 3 vehicles, and we're going to spend $887,000 plus to be used for an I&I project that we need to really get moving on this, because We're on our consent order through the DEQ, and this is the first phase. We have $3 million to spend, hopefully this year on I&I. So this is the first phase that we're going to be spending. And so to let you know the transparency tonight, we're spending $1 million of our tax dollars in these two little projects that we're doing at this time here this evening. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that has anything they'd like to say? Okay. Hearing none. Ms. Berry, would you call for the roll call, please?
Mr. Gillespie.
Yes.
Mr. Holloway.
Yes.
Mr. Meza.
Yes.
Mr. Silek.
Yes.
Mr. Tewell.
Yes.
And Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 8, public hearing ordinance to amend and reenact Town Code Section 180, 185 to renew the franchise agreement for public passenger bus service. First reading.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I move the town council affirm on its first reading an ordinance to amend and reenact Town Code Section 180-185 to renew a franchise agreement for public passenger bus service as presented.
Mr.
Excuse
Mayor,
me.
we need to have the public hearing before we make a motion.
Thank you.
I declare the public hearing is now open on the amendment as I stated previously.
Mr.
We have a
Vice Mayor.
motion? Okay, go ahead.
We didn't have any speakers that signed up, but if anyone would like to speak.
Hearing none?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I'd like for the clerk to at least read the motion or read the captions, read it so the people here can understand what we're voting on. So if I could ask her to read the captions so that everybody knows what we're voting on here this evening. If I'm not out of order, I'd like to.
No, you're not out of order. We've discussed in work session, so, and maybe the public didn't get all of it, but go ahead, Ms. Berry, just the captions, please.
May I interject, Mr. Vice Mayor? Because you had it open and then no one spoke, but I just want to make a statement.
So you'd like to speak?
I just want to make one statement, and that's it.
All right.
When I was unaware that there would be a public hearing on it, I don't have anything against passenger bus services. However, I think if there's an amendment and you need to have a public hearing, that for transparency purposes, it should be advertised. I believe that is the prudent thing to do.
Yes, sir, it was advertised.
Okay.
And the amendment is a renewal for 5 years. It's been enacted since 2004, not changing the contract, just up. It's up for renewal, and so we're extending out the public transit contract.
Okay. The question is then, is there any data on how much the service is used?
It was discussed in our last work session, and we had a presentation. I don't know if last work session or session before.
But
we had a
is the
presentation.
public all completely aware of what those numbers are?
It was open public hearing. Is right. Everybody's invited to the work sessions to see it. And I believe, and now I think I'm
okay. How many people attended the work session?
Let's do it this way.
I'm just asking these questions.
Let's do it this way.
Okay. All right.
We have a town manager.
All right.
He has
An
office
interim
hours.
town- an interim
You
town
call him
manager.
up,
Yeah.
make an appointment, and I'm sure he'll share every dollar that we discussed during this period of time. And he'll be
Right.
gladly to
I
do
was
that.
just talking about the transparency to the 15,000 people. That's all. That's all.
I thought maybe you wanted that information.
Well, I do want the information, but I'm being the voice of the 15,000 people that may or may not know what those numbers are. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor, can I get the actual summary read, please?
Yes.
Yes.
Council is requested to affirm on its first reading an ordinance to amend and reenact Code Section 180, 185 of the Town Code to renew a franchise agreement for public passenger bus service, the Front Royal Trolley Service, as presented. Upon final approval, the franchise will be for a 5-year term. The agreement was first adopted in 2004 and has been renewed every 5 years since.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I move that Town Council affirm in its first reading an ordinance to amend and reenact Town Code Section 180-185 to renew a franchise agreement for public passenger bus service as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second at this point to approve the public passenger bus service at this time. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Vice Mayor, did we close the public hearing?
No.
Sorry.
You want to close it? All right. Keep me
Sorry.
Public hearing on this public bus service is closed. Now we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor. I think this is a great program, a great offering that we're able to bring to the town of Front Royal, the cost of which is $1 to ride our public transit system. It's subsidized through the state with a small local match. It's an excellent program. It's been in place since 2004. We've continued to adopt it and extend our contract because the ridership continues to increase every year for people using it from Skyline to local residents, all the way out to, from our local trolley system, all the way out to the corridor and even to Lord Fairfax, so that people who can't afford transit have an opportunity to continue their education. It's something we've discussed every year, and it's something that we've continued to make sure that we fund because we see a need in the community, and it's been well received, and we get a biannual report at this public meeting and discuss once annually.
Ms. Berry, roll call, please.
Mr. Gillespie.
Yes.
Mr. Holloway.
Yes.
Mr. Meza.
Yes.
Mr. Silek.
Yes.
Mr. T-Wall.
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 11, we'd like to go into a closed session to do.
Item number 9.
I missed number 9, I'm sorry. Bear with me. Open public hearing on daycare at 460 Commerce Avenue. Is there any speakers, Ms. Berry?
There were no speakers. Would you like me to read the summary?
Okay. Having no speakers at this time?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I think she wants to read the summary as to what's being voted on.
He's just closing the public hearing.
Okay. Public hearing is closed at this time. Ms. Berry, would you read the summary, please?
Council is requested to approve a special use permit submitted by the Embassy Deliverance and Worship Center to allow daycare to operate within the existing building at 460 South Commerce. The daycare is proposed to operate under the business name of Parents Heart. It is currently zoned C1 district, which only allows a daycare. The Planning Commission recommended the approval of this application with the 4 conditions listed in your packet.
This is, on this public hearing item, there's only one reading. So council advise you it's one reading, not 2. So keep it in mind. Do I have a motion for approval?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I move that council approve a special use permit to the Embassy Deliverance and Worship Center to allow a daycare to operate within 460 South Commerce Avenue under the business name A Parent's Heart, contingent upon 4 conditions recommended by the Planning Commission and listed in the staff report.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Gillespie and a second by Ms. Thompson. Ms. Berry, roll call, please.
Any discussion?
All right, discussion.
I have a transparency to provide. Shannon, who proposed this, is actually a cousin of mine, but I was not aware until it came across my desk that she was even applying, so she didn't contact me for any sort of special voting or anything else. I just wanted to put that out there.
Any other?
Oh, and I ran it past Doug. Sorry. Doug Napier also agreed there was no conflict of interest.
Any other discussion this time?
Yes, I just want to thank the applicant. I think that additional daycare is needed in this community. And I know that that's something that's not very easy to do and a lot of work. And I like how you were able to redesign your space to make that happen. And I know it's a little bit of a process to go through for the special use permit. But I thank you for enduring and going through the process, and I wish you all the success.
Anyone else? Ms. Berry, roll call, please.
Mr. Gillespie.
Yes.
Mr. Holloway.
Yes.
Mr. Meza.
Yes.
Mr. Silek.
Yes.
Mr. Tewald.
Yes.
Ms. Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I just got word from our town attorney that we do not have to go into closed meeting tonight.
Okay, so we need to remove the closed meeting session.
That's correct.
I need a motion then to remove the EDA closed session period.
We don't need a motion, we just need
Okay.
just not go into closed meeting.
All right, we'll cancel the closed meeting. We will go into a town council work session. We're going to review the RFP for executive search for town manager. So we'll be going into that meeting here very shortly. And I don't expect anything significant to come out for the press, unless you'd like to stay, or the public. We'd be glad to have you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second, I have a motion to adjourn and a second. Meeting as of tonight is closed.